The dust of Burkina Faso carried whispers that morning, whispers older than borders, older than pain, older than the lies that shaped maps. And as the crowd gathered, a single voice rose above the hum of the world. He did not come to mourn. He came to remind. He spoke not as a politician, not even as a soldier, but as a witness of memory. "Brothers, sisters, you were never lost," he began. And in those words, something ancient stirred. The world had told them they were forgotten children of broken chains and borrowed names, but he said no. They were not forgotten. They were taken. And even then, they were never broken. The ships that carried bodies across oceans could never steal their souls. The chains that cut their wrists could never bind their minds. The man's words rolled like thunder across the crowd, through screens, through cities. From Lagos to Los Angeles, from Accra to Atlanta, people stopped scrolling. They listened. Because he was not giving a speech. He was giving them back their reflection. He told them the truth the textbooks never dared to print. Their story did not begin in slavery. It began in sovereignty. Before Europe even had a compass, Africa had Mali, Kush, Songhai, empires of knowledge, trade, and creation. "You are not descendants of slaves," he said. "You are descendants of enslaved kings." That sentence hit like lightning. It reframed pain into power. He went on. For centuries, the world had fed them a single image of Africa: dry lands, hungry children, desperate eyes. But the cameras had never turned toward the truth. They never showed children in Burkina Faso standing in the rain to guard their schools. They never showed mothers with hands of iron tilling hope into the earth. They never showed soldiers who fought not for colonizers, but for the people beside them. Because if they ever saw that Africa, the one that builds, not begs, the illusion would collapse. He said, "You were taught that Africa is chaos, but you were never shown who created that chaos." And in that pause, every listener knew what he meant: the quiet theft of resources, the sabotaged governments, the economic strings dressed as aid. "If you ever realize that every time Africa rises, the West moves to break it," he continued, "you would understand that your struggle and ours were never separate." That was the bridge. A bridge from Harlem to Harare, from Minneapolis to Bamako, from Compton to the Congo. He did not speak of charity. He spoke of power, continental power. What would happen, he asked, if even a small part of Black America reinvested in Africa? Not just money, but genius. What if the same minds that built Silicon Valley helped build solar cities in Senegal? What if the same nurses who healed Ferguson helped train new healers in Ghana? What if our lawyers, our artists, our coders, our engineers worked together across oceans, not as strangers, but as one? It was not fantasy. It was strategy. Because the truth was simple, the diaspora was not a minority. They were part of the global majority. The scattered children of a continent that had never stopped calling their names. He spoke slowly now, his tone soft but firm. Africa is not coming to beg, Africa is coming to build. And suddenly, the silence felt holy. He said the continent did not need pity, it needed partnership, not tourists, not donors, co-architects. Because liberation was not local, it was global. His voice carried through the wind like prophecy. He admitted Africa's wounds, corruption, borders drawn by colonizers, leaders who forget their people. But he said, that's not the end. It's the beginning of healing. The African future cannot be white authored, he said. It cannot be NGO authored. It must be Black authored by those who feel its wounds and speak its language, even if their tongues have forgotten it. Across the world, hearts pounded. This was not another motivational talk. This was a declaration of alignment. He reminded them that when one knee pressed on one neck, across an ocean, another soul felt it. That when George Floyd cried out, the Sahel heard it. That when injustice touched one child in Baltimore, a mother in Bamako felt the tremor. Because oppression has many faces, but one system. Different uniforms, same empire. He did not speak of revenge. He spoke of repair, and repair begins with reconnection. He told of children in Sahel defending their villages with slingshots, not because they believed they would win easily, but because they refused to die quietly. And through his voice, the idea became clear. Africa's call was not sentimental. It was strategic. Reunion was not poetic, it was political. When the diaspora and the continent moved together, he said, the empire stumbled. He looked into the lens, speaking to millions unseen. You may have been born in the land of chains, he said, but you are heirs of the land of kings. He told them they were not lucky to survive slavery. They were strong enough to outlast it. Their creativity was not random, it was ancestral. Their brilliance was not exception, it was expectation. From Harlem's rhythm to Nairobi's code, from Accra's streets to Atlanta's stages, every spark of black excellence was a drumbeat of memory returning home. Africa was not their past. It was their unfinished future. He called them not to leave America, but to link Africa. Not to abandon their lives, but to root their truth. He said, teach your children the names of African heroes. Study African history not as a curiosity, but as your inheritance. And then came the moment of full realization. He said, you are not lost. You are legend in motion. They understood. They were never outsiders looking in. They were the continuation of a story that had simply been interrupted. He reminded them that excellence was not exceptional, it was expected. Creativity was not random, it was inherited. Strength was not surprise, it was legacy. From the gold dust of Mali to the code lines of Nairobi, from the rhythms of Harlem to the courage of Wagadougou, the message rang clear. Africa was not their past, it was their unfinished future. He said, come not as guests, but as guides. Build with us, dream with us, remember who you are. And across continents, something ancient stirred. They were not descendants of defeat. They were descendants of defiance. The world had tried to rename them, relocate them, rewrite them, but the blood remembered. And the story was never over. It was only waiting to be reclaimed.